World War II forced the British Empire to fight for its life on multiple fronts, stretching its military resources across the globe. For India, this chaos created a fleeting, high-stakes opportunity to demand independence while the colonizers were at their weakest. While much of the Indian leadership adhered to a strategy of nonviolent protest, Subhash Chandra Bose took a more radical stance. He viewed the global war as a strategic opening, believing that freedom would have to be seized through armed conflict and foreign alliances. To prevent Bose from mobilizing the public, the British placed him under strict house arrest in Calcutta. They surrounded his home with armed guards and a network of plainclothes detectives, hoping to neutralize his influence without creating a political martyr. He was a man with the ambition to raise a national army, yet he was physically trapped in a single house, watched day and night by the intelligence services of the world's most powerful empire. On the night of January 16, 1941, Bose enacted a daring deception. Disguised as a humble insurance agent named Mohammed Ziadin, he slipped past the guards and disappeared into the night. His family kept the ruse alive for days, delivering meals to an empty room to fool the detectives outside. By the time the British realized his bed was cold, Bose had already crossed the border, leaving behind domestic politics for a role on the global stage. Escaping British India required a treacherous journey through the harsh mountain passes of the Northwest in the middle of winter. He traveled through remote terrain, relying on local guides and darkness to avoid detection. He reached Kabul, a city teeming with international spies and refugees. Unable to speak the local dialect, he adopted a high-risk disguise. He posed as a deaf and mute Pathan tribesman to explain his silence to anyone who questioned him. For weeks, he lived in squalid inns, dodging British agents, while secretly lobbying the Soviet and Axis embassies for a way to reach Europe. He was a man without a country, operating in total secrecy to find a way to Berlin. This overland journey was a test of survival. Using forged papers and sheer physical endurance, Bose outmaneuvered the most extensive intelligence network in the world. Bose arrived in Berlin in 1941 and immediately began recruiting Indian prisoners of war. He formed the Indian Legion, a specialized combat unit intended to serve as the vanguard for a future liberation of India. However, the alliance was built on friction. Adolf Hitler viewed Indians with deep-seated racial prejudice, and the German High Command was more interested in using Bose for propaganda than for real military strategy. When Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, Germany severed the overland route to India, leaving Bose's legion stranded. Realizing Germany would never prioritize Indian independence, Bose looked to Japan. They were the only power capable of reaching India, requiring travel through hostile seas. Bose discarded his European plans with cold pragmatism. He was willing to switch patrons and brave the ocean if it meant keeping his vision of an independent Indian army alive. The journey to Japan was a 2-month ordeal inside a German U-boat. The submarine had to navigate waters heavily patrolled by the British Royal Navy, spending much of the time submerged in cramped, oxygen-deprived conditions. They shadowed the African coast, constantly evading sonar sweeps and Allied depth charges. For Bose, the mission had moved from mountain passes to the depths of the Atlantic. In April 1943, the German vessel met a Japanese submarine in the Indian Ocean. In the middle of a world war, Bose used a small rubber raft to cross the churning, open water between the two surfaced holes. No Indian civilian had ever undertaken such a dangerous military transfer. It was a maneuver that required technical precision and a complete disregard for personal safety. The transfer was a demonstration of intent. When Bose finally stepped onto the Japanese deck, he brought a level of credibility that no diplomatic cable could ever provide. In Tokyo, Bose met with Prime Minister Hideki Tojo. He secured a commitment of military support that, on paper, respected the sovereignty of a future Indian government. He then arrived in Singapore to take command of 40,000 troops. This was the Azad Hind Fauj, an army composed of former prisoners and volunteers from the Indian diaspora. Bose revitalized the movement with a singular, famous demand to his soldiers and the public: "Give me blood, and I shall give you freedom." The army was no longer a collection of defeated prisoners. Bose had transformed them into a unified military force with a single, clear objective: the armed liberation of India. The INA marched toward India's northeast, fighting through thick jungle and mountain terrain. They captured territory in Imphal and hoisted the Indian flag on the Andaman Islands, marking the first time the movement held physical ground. However, the offensive stalled. A combination of torrential monsoon rains and malaria and the collapse of Japanese logistics forced the INA into a punishing retreat back toward Burma. In August 1945, with the war nearly over, Bose boarded a plane in Taiwan. The aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff, resulting in his death from severe burns, and ending his personal involvement in the struggle. The British colonial government assumed the threat had died with him. With the INA surrendered, they believed their grip on India was secure once again. To demonstrate their authority, the British held a public court-martial at the Red Fort in Delhi. They tried 3 INA officers, 1 Hindu, 1 Muslim, and 1 Sikh, for treason against the King-Emperor. The trial had the opposite of its intended effect. Instead of intimidating the population, it unified the public across religious lines in support of the INA, sparking mass protests and strikes across the subcontinent. The unrest spread to the colonial military itself. Mutinies broke out in the Royal Indian Navy and parts of the army, as Indian soldiers realized they could no longer fire on their own people in the name of the British Crown. Bose's army had failed on the battlefield, but it succeeded in destroying the empire's internal security. By 1947, the British were forced to realize that their control depended on a military that no longer recognized their authority, making their departure from India a necessity.
Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. Please subscribe, like this video and keep watching our content. We bring you amazing videos regularly.